Robert Rivas Radio, Tejano, and much more.
Robert Rivas Radio, Tejano, and much more. And at this time, it's my privilege to introduce the co-founder and lead singer of LA's very own Tierra+Steve Salas to my morning show. Good morning, Steve.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Robert?
Okay, amigo. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing okay. It's kind of a rainy morning here in L.A., but, I love the rain. I'll tell you, man. It just gives me really, really good vibes, man.
You know, Steve, we've gotten a lot of rain here. We're expecting more rain here as well, and está poquito fresquecito también. It's kind of cool here in San Antonio, but I love it, man. It's that time of year. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the rain. I know there was a lot of rain in parts of Texas, so excuse me about that. Maybe we should not even mention the rain right now, huh?
Steve, I'm a very, very big fan of you and, of course, of Tierra. And, heck, man, Steve, you have left your mark in the music business, amigo, and I can't think of anywhere else to start but from the very, very beginning, Steve. Now, before we jump to the bands that you have performed with and recorded with, etc., let's talk about you, Steve. It's Steve Salas. Amigo, where did this all begin? Where did you say, you know what, I want to be a musician? Where did this all start, amigo?
Well, you know, it's funny because my mom was a singer, my dad was a folclorista dancer, and my uncle, they play guitar. So I guess it started then, you know, that on family holidays, they would play guitars and sing. And then just naturally, my brother and myself would sing, my older brother Rudy. And then he got a guitar and started playing. So then we started singing together. So when we first started singing together, we were like 7 years old and 10 years old, you know, my brother being older than I am. But and it started there. We just started singing at our family functions as the Salas brothers. And one day, someone heard us at some kind of function. Ended up, you know, contacting us. We ended up joining our first band when I guess I must have been about 10 years old. And my brother was 12 or 13. Our first band called the Percussions, which became the Jaguars. And then that was it. I knew right then, you know, this is what I wanted to do. It wasn't something that was just the stage thing. It was the music itself, you know. To me, music was beautiful, and I just wanted to be in the middle of it somehow, you know, so I learned how to play a bunch of instruments as well, and so that's the way it started, just singing at family functions.
Steve, let me ask you a question. While you were doing all these functions and family functions and stuff like that, I take it you had as my mom would say, a real job también, ¿verdad?
That was school. Definitely going to school.
Yes.
Yeah, I was into the school thing, but when we were also into the music, we were playing gigs. I did meet my first record when I was 11 years old, and and so we went as the Salas brothers, and I recorded probably, maybe 20 records before I graduated from high school. I had already recorded a bunch of records, you know.
Wow, wow. Impressive, man. That's very impressive.
Well, you know, I was in the right place at the right time, you know. But I kept really, really good with school to the point where I was student body president of when I graduated, and ended up getting a scholarship to Stanford University. And the funny thing is, as I was at Stanford, I mean, here I am, the luckiest man in the world to get a full scholarship at a university like that from, you know, East LA high schools. But I was flying home every weekend to sing. So it was so funny. One day I just flew home and I never went back, you know. And I knew music was just exactly what I wanted to do, you know.
So, Steve, let me ask you this. So going to college, and even before college, high school and junior high school, you've been involved with music and stuff like that. Did you eventually ever nail down just a regular job to help support to get a house, apartment, whatever, pay the bills or whatever, or has music always been the only thing you've been doing?
It's always been music. You know, the thing was that we were very lucky that once I quit school and we formed the first, like a top 40 band, immediately we started working 6 nights a week, 5 sets a night, and immediately we were working band. It was just like, you know, there was no in-between. Right away we started working full-time, and I never looked back. I never had to get a job or anything. I tried a couple of things later on, but mainly, you know, I was able to sustain good living, bought cars. It was good. And that was even before the Tierra thing. But
so you're sustaining well, doing what you're doing. Okay.
It's very lucky for a musician, for people like us, especially Latinos, Chicano, Mexicano musicians in this country, to be able to get to survive with a musical career. So I just feel like we're one of the fortunate ones, you know. Plus, it wasn't a lot of work, you know. It just didn't come, you know, at you. You had to work hard at it, you know.
Of course. You got to be very dedicated, very, very dedicated. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah. You know, the thing is, it's a passion. You know, if you have a passion for the music, you're going to give it all the time that it's necessary. You know, If you don't have the passion, you just kind of like, I like playing some music. Well, obviously, you're not going to give it as much time. But if you have the passion for music, let nothing get in your way, And obviously, I had, my brother and myself,
Steve, let me ask you this. Now, moving forward here a little bit, Los Angeles, L.A., I mean, I'm going to use the word Chicano music. I mean, hot and heavy, man. The competition's hot and heavy in Los Angeles. Wouldn't you say back in the 70s?
Well, I think that's what made us everybody have to, get as good as you can, because there was so much competition coming from and Northern California with all the bands like Malo and Santana and Sapo, and then Southern California with the Chicano and Tierra and some other bands, Macondo. But they were happening all over the country also, because I know when the first time we went into like Denver and Colorado, or first time we went into Chicago, when of course to Texas, it was happening all over. That started like late 60s and through the 70s, so it wasn't just common in California or LA, it was common all over Aztlán, all over the Southwest,
Steve, who would you say, in your opinion, who would you say pretty much opened the doors to Chicano music from Los Angeles, nationwide?
Jeez, man, that's really hard to say.
Is that a tough one? Santana, maybe?
Well, Carlos, yeah, Santana, I think what that did, though, and in fact, there's an exhibit over here about the old the music that came from the LA area from the 60s and 70s and the early 60s, and you realize up until 69 or so when Santana got big, 70, all the bands that we were called the Midnighters, the Jaguars, the Romancers, nobody used a Spanish name. Everybody, the Checkmates, the Ambertones, the Premiers. And then it wasn't until Santana actually crossed over that we started calling ourselves Malo, El Chicano, Tierra, So, I guess Santana did open that door and allowing us to empower ourselves rather than using the same names like the Midnight, right? Rather than using names like that, we were calling ourselves Chicano names,
Steve, why do you think all these bands we're not using we're not using Latin names like Santana and El Chicano and Tierra? Why do you think back earlier, they were using like the Vanguards and the Midnighters? Why were they doing this?
Well, the same reason actors were calling themselves, they were Anthony Quinn, but that was his real name. But it's like there was such a what do you call it, against us being involved in these industries that we had to sneak in like that, like. Andy Russell, he was Chicano, Mexicano, Chicano. He sang, and they had to change his name, Vicky Carr. These people had to change their name to get in. But once they got in and the 70s and 80s happened, then they proclaimed, hey, no, all along, I know it's my heart, But they had to do that. I remember when we were first starting, me and my brother, and we were, some people wanted to manage us, some white people, Jewish people, and I'm sorry, I don't mean it in a derogatory way, but they were saying, we've got to find a name for you. And we said, the Salas Brothers, that's who we are. They go, no, how about the Singing Tamales? And I'll never forget that. The Singing Tamales. Oh, my God.
The Singing Tamales.
Yeah. Anyway.
But you know what, Steve? I think it goes even further back, like the movie shows in La Bamba, where it was Valenzuela, and he changed it to Valens, Richie Valens, right about?
Perfect example right there. And like we were talking, and I think what Santana did was he empowered us. Like, hey, he did it. Why can't we call ourselves? Why do we have to keep calling ourselves, why can't we tell who we really are? So the Chicano, the Malo, and then eventually Tierra, So, that was very, very important part in the history of Chicano music,
Steve, how ironic it is, and I didn't even think about it till right now, is that right before we got started with this interview, you told me, hey, Robert, well, I know what's your call letters for the radio station, or what is it? And I said, it's Robert Rivas Radio, man. I said, I go with my name. That's what it is. That's what people know me by, and that's that. And it's straight out, forward, and to the point, man. And, it is what it is.
Yeah, well, it's real. It's honest.
Yeah.
Real honest. And I think that's when we started saying, hey, let's be ourselves. We're going to call Tierra. We were thinking of using the Salas Brothers as the name for Tierra, using a real name. But at the time, the whole thing was calling a band. You weren't selling like a front man or two brothers. You were selling like a movement, Malo, that gave these, like powerful, and strength, So that's why we went with Tierra, but you're right, it's real. It's who we are,
Okay, now, Steve, let's move forward here now. You're gigging here and there. You've been recording here and there, and then you land with the band El Chicano?
Oh man, that was early. That was like 1971, I think. We were playing at a club that El Chicano. They were known as the VIPs that were playing until they got their hit, Tirado, then they became the El Chicano. And we were playing at the club they used to play, and they came one night just to hang out and saw us performing, right? And they were working on their second album. And I knew a couple of them from years before, you know. So anyway, we talked, and they said they wanted some vocals on some harmonies on a couple of their songs. So we were at the studio, and we're just going to be doing backgrounds, and out of nowhere, they called me and said, hey, Steve, you want to come in here and do like a scratch vocal, something we can follow? And it was Brown Eyed Girl, which became, you know, one of their hit records. And I was 19, just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and they ended up keeping the scratch vocal that I did, and then we finished it up, me and Freddie. And that became, you know, my first hit record, you know, and I was all of 19 years old, just happened to be the luckiest person on the planet, man.
Wow, that's simply awesome. Now, Steve, refresh my memory here, dude. Okay, I like I said, my brother, God rest his soul, he passed away 4 years ago, but he was all into this, you know, the El Chicano, the Santana, and so on and so on. Now, let me ask you this. El Chicano had this album where it had a piñata in the front of it.
Yeah.
Do you remember this? What was the name of that album?
Celebration.
Celebration, that's right.
And that's the one that had that song Brown Eyed Girl on it, and other songs that I sang.
Okay, now let me ask you this. On that album, because I need your help here in this, man. On that album, wasn't there something called Viva Tirado Otra Vez and Masacate?
I think Viva Tirado and Masacate were from my album. No, Masacate was on that album, yeah. Vamos
right?
Tocar para ti.
Hey, now you're talking, Steve. There you go.
Yeah, you know. Well, that was me. That was me and my brother and a couple of Chicano guys doing those coros. Vamos tocar para ti.
Oh, my God, dude.
Oh,
my God, dude. Jeez, man. Hijo, man. Dude, that is music, brother. That is music, man. I can play that song over and over again, man. Good stuff, dude.
Oh, man, I swear. You imagine, you know, a guy 19 years old, man, and being in the studio with these guys who have a major hit record. And, you know, and it was such chief, man, you know. You couldn't believe the vibe, you know, and the energy, you know, just flowing, man. It was just beautiful, man.
Yeah. Just simply awesome. Now, let me backtrack here because I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry, man. I got excited here, Steve. I got excited here. Now, amigo, were you part of, let me go back here. Were you part of Viva Tirado?
No, that was done right about a year earlier. That Viva Tirado was just an instrumental that they were just jamming, and it was so, you know, timely that someone heard it, loved it. You know, an instrumental in those days, dude, an instrumental to become a hit was very rare, you know. So it was all instrumental, not vocal at all. And so, I mean, that was, you know, that happened about a year before I ended up working with them.
Okay, so obviously you were not with them when they came out with Tell Her She's Lovely también, ¿verdad?
Well, Tell Her She's Lovely was after the Celebration album. See, Vaya Tirado was, I think, on the first album, and then Celebration was the second album that I worked on with me and my brother. And then the third album, there was the one that had Tell Her She's Lovely.
And you were part of that también?
No, you know what, we weren't, but the guy that sang Tell Her She's Lovely was the same, his name was Salas also. So it was very confusing.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, Jerry. I don't know. I don't know if it was intentional or what, but it's a good story.
Also, El Chicano had a monster hit called Sabor a Mi.
Yeah, what's her name? Ursi Arvizu. The girl singer on that?
Right. Was that the only song that you had a female singer come out on El Chicano recording?
No, she sang on that very first album. She sang quite a few songs. But when it came to the second Celebration album, she was no longer a part of it. You know, her management, you know. But she's living in Phoenix, and she's still singing, and she's singing great right now, man. You know, I did a gig, I don't know, a few months with her, a few months ago. Ursi Arvizu, yeah, great talent.
Now, moving forward now, you were with El Chicano from what year to what year, Steve?
Well, I did those recordings in 71, and I did some gigging with them for about a year and a half. And then, but that's when we were starting up Tierra. So I ended up, you know, putting all my time with Tierra. Meanwhile, El Chicano continued on their other path. But years later, I ended up working with Chicano again for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. That was probably in the 90s, you know. But,
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you and your brother Rudy went ahead and formed the band Tierra, ¿verdad?
Right, 1972, right about a year after we did that Celebration album with Chicano. We formed our own, and plus being that we were a part of that album with Chicano, it gave us a little bit more, feather in our cap, So we did our first Tierra album, which it didn't do much, but, right now that is probably our most highly critiqued album, most highly acclaimed album. Was the very first one, and that was released in 73, and it was just simply called Tierra. But, if you ever get a hold of that record, it's probably just on vinyl. I don't think you can find it. Yeah, I think you can find it on CD somewhere, but it is so different. So different than what we've done the last 20 years, But it's something to listen to, I'll tell you, man. It's far out.
Now, okay, so now moving forward, it's actually your first mega hit, and I mean mega hit, amigo, would be in 1980, the remake of the Intruder song, Together, ¿verdad?
Oh, man, yeah. We did 2 albums. That's Tierra, the first Tierra one, the other one Stranded, before we were able to hit, a hit record. And that was, like you said, 1980, 81. Man, that changed our lives forever.
Now, fíjate, Steve. I mean, how remarkable is this, man? That song by the Intruders, it's a Together, which, it was the original from the Intruders, of course, now with Tierra, y'all's version. It hit the Billboard Hot 100 at number 18 and number 9 here on the U.S. R&B charts, too. You hit 2 charts, man, the same year.
Actually, we hit 3 because we were also on Adult Contemporary, I think.
There we go. I stand corrected.
And then my brother keeps saying it was 4, and I can't remember what the 4th one, unless it was like, a country market, but I don't think so. But I'll tell you, man, it's funny because of the Intruders version, we weren't aware of it. We thought it was a big hit because it was big in our circuit here in L.A. But apparently it wasn't a really big hit at all. It was very regional. But so when we put it out, a lot of people, it was a brand new song, and we had no idea we'd get that kind of response, man.
Unbelievable. Amigo, I love the album work on that album, Tierra, man. I mean, it's just simply awesome where it's got all the band members around the car, and an old school car, and y'all got that LA look. I mean, simply awesome, dude. I mean, who put this album cover together?
Well, that's another story. We had done the same concept because when we first recorded that album, we released it ourselves with a small little label, and we did the album cover. We did a photo shoot for Life magazine. It was way back. Life was still in existence. Life magazine did a lowrider story, so they involved us in a photo shoot on some hill over there in West LA. Wow, we used that as our album cover for that City Nights album. We released it on our own. Well, we got top 40 nationally with a small little label. So immediately. The other company Boardwalk came in, Neil Bogart, and they bought it. And we redid the album cover, but we did it in our neighborhood right here in L.A. And so it was more personal to us. It was just a great thing, They treated us very well. Neil Bogart from Boardwalk, they treated us like we were kings, man. I never felt so loved. It was funny, man, And not just but the audiences, everywhere you went. These people were just going, that's them, that's Tierra, like if we were kind of like finally we see someone like us right there doing American bandstand. And I'm sure, just like the Beatles did, when I saw Ed Sullivan back in 63 or 4, and at that point, I was wondering, can I make music my career? I was about 12 maybe, and boom, I saw the Beatles. I said, that's it. That made me realize I could make a living doing this, And I'm pretty sure the people got the same feeling when they saw Tierra on all these shows, these TV shows all nationwide, and say American Music Awards, saying, hey, you know what, I can do this, So, it was very, very proud,
No doubt, man. And so, and the music, the music was simply unreal on that album. You had, of course, Together, you had Memories, and you had Gonna Find Her, which was, pretty much carried the spotlight of that album, man. Just simply some awesome music, Steve. I mean, what was the feeling like, amigo? What was it to finally say, you know what, Jesus Christ, man, finally landed something, man, that you strive for since you were a little boy?
Well, I never had a doubt that it would happen, but I didn't realize how overwhelming it would be, that suddenly your time is not your own anymore. So there was, another side of it, but mainly just the people. You could just see it in their eyes when you're on stage or when you did interviews or when you go and do these autograph sessions at these music stores. you could see it that people are saying, you know, God darn, it's about time that one of our groups is there, you know. And to me, that meant much, much more than anything else, you know, that we opened that door, you know, a little wider.
Okay, Steve, after City Nights, what was your next release?
Well, about it's been about a year and a half later with the same company. They picked up the option with a Boardwalk, and we did an album called Together Again. I'm pretty sure it was that one, which we started getting pretty good airplay on that, and a couple of songs out of there. But then, unfortunately, the CEO of the company, the president, who was, you know, Neil Bogart was the guy that started, you know, Aldana Summer. He had records over there on the East Coast, Casablanca Records. Well, he was here because he had cancer and he was getting treatments. Well, right around the time my second album was doing okay, he got very sick and he wasn't able to support it anymore. And, you know, that really kind of like took the air out of the balloon for most of the people in the company. And so it kind of like fell short. And then we did a third album for them. And again, you know, there was they didn't have the same kind of power or strength or, you know, or genius that he was, you know. So those were the next two albums, you know, Together Again and Bad City Boys. But it was all dampened by the company, the president, he passed away.
Okay, Steve, you know, it's unreal how a band can be on fire. Things are happening, you know, hit after hit. The crowds are there. The sales are there. And, you know, it's, you know, I can't tell you how many bands, you know, that not only is there Hispanic bands, Chicano bands, rock bands, Tejano bands, country bands, where, you know, things sometimes they just get a little rocky, man, you know. And, of course, along the lines, you and your brother Rudy, you know, you kind of like split up here a little bit. You know, just things just started getting a little shaky. It's that really, in all reality, Steve, what was pretty much the main reason for the breakup between you and your brother Rudy?
Well, you know, maybe creative differences, you know. He had one way, and I felt that, you know, I'd been with him the whole trip, all the years and everything. I thought, hey, well, you know, I mean, I have ideas too, and we were able to coordinate. But I think there was a couple of events in the early 80s that were very important, and one of them was Neil Bogart, the president of the Boardwalk, who was very supportive and really backed us in every single way, thought we were special. When he got sick and passed away, that took a lot out of the momentum. And then we did a couple projects there that we probably shouldn't have done, and we lost a lot of our fan base. But, you know, also just the music didn't have that, heart and soul, you know, that we had in the 70s and 80s. And so, I mean, I don't know. That's my my version of it. But, you know, it picked up again in the 90s, and you know, okay, we'll go on from there.
Let me ask you something, Steve. Now, when you guys first put the band together, was it always a mutual thing between you and your brother Rudy to where, you know, making the decisions, or did Rudy carry more of the load, or did y'all ever have an agreement saying, I tell you what, Rudy, you take care of this part of it, I'll take care of this other part of it, and we'll move forward? Was it ever like 50-50, or was it more like 70-30? Was there any kind of agreement or anything from the beginning when you guys formed together?
Well, at the very beginning, it was like, you know, 50-50 in terms of, you know, let's do this together. And when we left the nightclub scene and we formed Tierra, that was the whole situation. It was me and him, and then one by one we selected different members. So it was a 50-50 thing. That began to change later, I guess, you know. But, you know, the difference is that he's your older brother, and that sibling rivalry that you have where you got to give it up for the older brother and stuff like that, well, it shouldn't exist in business, but it does exist in business. And I know I try to fight it every time I could, but it just wasn't there because it would always be like, you know, older brother's going to get what he wants. So pretty much, yeah, that's it ended up, you know, when we didn't have these split-ups, you know, because it was just like, what am I doing here then, you know? He just wants me to sing, and that's what I do. But I wanted to be more involved, and I wasn't allowed.
Steve, do you think it's more of a difficult thing to be in the music business alongside a family member than not being alongside a family member?
I think any business, if you're in the business with a family member, I think everybody ought to understand that same sibling rank, that same, dynamic is going to exist because that person, whoever had the power back then, is going to still demand that, you know? And I think people started to rethink that before they go into business with family members. But as far as in this music business, I mean, there's nothing better than two brothers playing together since they were kids because they so anticipate each other. I mean, they would experience so many of the same things that when one guy gets stuck at something, the other guy's got the answer, you know? We're writing songs together, and I come to think, well, I don't know which way to go. All of a sudden, my brother, boom, all of a sudden, there he is with it, because we were raised the same, listening to the same, playing the same. So I think creatively, it's a wonderful thing to have brothers or cousins or sisters involved, you know, in music. It's just when it comes to business, that's when you got to start, you know, looking at it like, hey, we're all equals here. Let's remember that, you know.
So now, Steve, you started your own band. Y'all guys split up. You started your own band, and you also called it Tierra también, ¿verdad?
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
So there were two Tierras. There were two of them.
Well,
there were two of them.
Well, because we both owned the name, right?
Okay.
In my behalf, I mean, I recruited almost all of the original members. So my Tierra from 1990, I don't know, was it 96 to 2004 or 5? We had most of the original members for the first couple of years. We had about 6 or 7 of the original members. And then little by little, of course, you know, dwindled down to a few, but at least they had the original lead singer, was myself, you know, and the original horns, Bobby Navarrete, Bobby Loya. So, yeah, there was that rivalry, two tierras, and my brother wasn't happy about it, but I was within my legal rights because I own, you know, half the name.
That is simply crazy. And you know what, dude? It happens in the music business. But along with that, now, from what my information has it, is that there was a club that had booked, you know, it's Rudy Salas, and also booked Steve Salas, two Tierra bands, and you guys tried to go ahead and combine it and put it together and do some concerts there, but it just didn't happen, right?
Oh, man, it's so funny you would know that. That was here in L.A. at the Conga Room. Well, back then, it was so hot and heavy, you know, the rivalry, and, I mean, people were threatening each other. I'm going, come on, you know, all we got to do is settle this in court or just settle it, and I'll drop my band, you know, if you deal with me, you know. But no, he didn't want to deal with me. Instead, they were threatening my people. It was a big, you know, bad scene. And all the people in our neighborhood, in our area, our families, like, were they going, work it out, guys, you know. Anyway,
yeah.
So we did try to do one gig together, and we got a couple guys in my band, a couple guys in him band, and it turned into a real bad thing.
That is unfortunate, man, because, you know, you guys are, you know, the talent that you guys carry, and of course, and at the end of the day, man, not only the music, but your fan base, you know, they pretty much, you know, they take the hit along with everybody, you know, with their music, you know, because, you know, everybody wants to hear you guys perform, you know what I mean?
You know, I've been saying that, and especially recently, there was a lot of high-profile gigs in the LA and, you know, I think Arizona, where they did those old jams, those old love jams, you know, and people were very disappointed because my brother didn't use me on the gig, and we got into that, and I don't think what my brother understands, and what was pointed out to me by other people, is that, you know, you're not just hurting your brother, you're hurting the fans. They want to see the original singer. When Together comes on, they don't want to see, they would love to see Steve Salas singing it, you know, because that's the truth, you know. And I think, and, you know, my brother doesn't understand that. He's not disappointing me. He's disappointing the fans, you know. But that's just the way it is, you know.
No. But let me ask you something, Steve. Coming from a fan, is there any way that this thing can ever be worked out?
You know, not as the other, I don't think. But I talked to my brother actually this morning. I don't know what date it's going to be, but it was my brother's birthday today. So I talked to him this morning. Happy birthday. So we're really on good speaking terms. But I think as long as we do it as Tierra, it's going to be very uncomfortable for both of us. But as we get very much older, I think we're looking at doing a Salas Brothers kind of project. And, I mean, that's who we were in the first place, right? The Salas Brothers. So I think that would probably be more possible, you know?
I think it would be awesome if you guys, both of you, I don't know who's to blame, it doesn't really matter, but just bury the hatchet, you know, un abrazo, and move forward, man, because, man, I tell you what, man, you know, the combination of Steve and Rudy Salas on stage, man, and, of course, the music of Tierra, man, I mean, we need it, amigo. We really, really do.
You know what? I love you for saying that, my brother, because this is what I've been pushing for all these years. It's just that, you know, again, the whole dynamic is that, you know, it's not his idea, it doesn't fly, you know? So I'm just waiting for him to say, hey, Steve, you know, let's do a couple of these gigs together and show people that we can do it, you know? And so, you know, I'm just waiting for him, you know?
You know, before we move forward here, I want to thank Rocky Padilla for giving me the hookup to talk to you, Steve. I'm telling you, man, Rocky's another story, but we won't talk. All I want to do about Rocky right now is send him a shout-out. Mr. Rocky Padilla, man, is really awesome, man. I'm playing a big hit that has simply exploded here on my internet radio station. But he, you know, Rocky surprised me. He goes, hey, Robert, got a couple of Christmas songs, man. I'm going to send to you, man. Tell me what you think about them and see what you can, what you can do for us. And he sent me 2 songs, but he sent me one. He sent me one, man, that's called A Father's Love. And I jumped on that one, Steve, and I told Rocky, hey, Rocky, this is an awesome song, man. He goes, actually, that's a Steve Salas project. And he gave me full credit for that. And I told him, Rocky, it's an awesome song. So, Steve, I know it's not Christmas time anymore, but it doesn't mean we can't talk about it. Talk to me about this Christmas song you put together where you talk about the smell of tamales in the morning on Christmas Day.
Man, it's so funny, man. I was just pretty much thinking about my dad, man, because, that's the way he rolled, on Christmas. I mean, he was such a, I don't know if you've heard about my dad. He was an artist, but, he had to have a day job, but he looked at everything through an artist's eyes. He actually was a really good painter artist, but so he was a very creative man, Anyway, so that's pretty much the story. On Christmas Eve, he would sing, and, he would sing Christmas song, but he'd throw in a ranchera or bolero too, we'd always sing with the guitars. And then on Christmas morning, he'd go all crazy, just like we get crazy with the toys, with the presents, So it was a true story of our experiences, But from a son, paying tribute to his dad. And then the other song was a song that I did with Rocky. I actually wrote it just for Rocky, which was Must Be Christmas. Kind of wrote itself, but right away I said, this is for Rocky, and Rocky came in to do his lead vocal. I left for a few minutes. When I came back, they had totally made it a duet between me and Rocky. And I said, hey, whatever you guys want, because my nephew is the engineer, songwriter, musician, David Salas. I got to give him a shout. My nephew, he is so top of the line, Anyway, so that's how those songs happened, and I wrote the Fathers of Also. That was years ago I wrote that.
Steve, when was the last time you came to San Antonio, amigo?
Last time I was there, I went in there with our 2 horn players, Bobby Navarrete, and Bobby Loya, and we sat in with the band at one of those, I think it was Cinco de Mayo, or there's a Desi Safe anyway. But the last time with Tierra, I was there with the Chicano Awards when Jay Perales and, what's his name, Selena's brother?
Avi Quintanilla.
With Avi, when they came on stage and joined me on Together, man, what a moment, man, in that big theater auditorium downtown. And, man, what a moment, man, to be able to have those guys come up to me and join me on that song. It was a moment to remember,
Steve, any last words for your fans?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for listening, and keep listening to Robert, man, because this is what we have to do. We got to keep this music and, look at Rocky Padilla. I mean, he's a lot younger. He's a generation behind me, but he's keeping that genre going, that old school genre. And I think as long as there's people like you and other people that are keeping this song, man, we're the luckiest people in the world, man, because this is us. This is what we do, whether it's low riding or whether it's, R&B or even if it's Chicano rap, or hip-hop, whatever it is, or Latin rock. The thing is, we have to support it, because no one else is going to help us, And I think that's the commitment we make, Robert?
That's right. Steve, I feel very, very blessed to have been able to talk to you on the phone, not only talk to you, interview you, because by talking to you and reliving some of this music from back in the day, it makes me feel like my brother's alive again. It really, really does, and you've given me this feeling. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you. What was your brother's name?
John Rivas.
Hey, this is for you, John. I thought, man, it's a beautiful feeling, man, that you know that they're listening,
There you go. Steve, thank you for being part of Robert Rivas Radio.
Thank you very much, and to all Tejanos out there, man, we love you, man. Keep the faith.
Robert Rivas Radio, Tejano, and much more.